Good afternoon and welcome, everyone. My name is Ty Stevenson. I'm a proud graduate of Wayne State University's College of Liberal Arts and Sciences and College of Education, and I currently serve as the Executive Director of the Wayne State University Alumni Association. The association today is proud to bring you the Urban Perspectives Lecture Series, named in honor of the late Arthur L. Johnson. A passionate and inspiring leader at Wayne State for over 30 years, Arthur was highly respected and well known for his activism for civil rights, his passion for the arts, and his dedication to education. Arthur's work at Wayne State began in 1965 when he joined the university as a part-time sociology faculty member while simultaneously serving as the Detroit Public Schools Superintendent for School and Community Relations. In 1972, he became Vice President of University Relations and also continued teaching as a professor of educational psychology before retiring in 1995, at which point he was serving as Wayne State's Senior Vice President for University Relations. Regardless of his role at Wayne, Arthur had a special impact on all who were fortunate enough to call him colleague, instructor, or friend. Since its inception upon his retirement, the Arthur L. Johnson Urban Perspectives Lecture Series has brought to campus nearly 50 speakers whose topics have focused on education, politics, the arts, and a variety of other areas of urban interest. Both Wayne State University and the City of Detroit are markedly better for the tremendous impact Arthur has made. We'd also like to thank his wife, Shakana, for being with us today. Now it's my pleasure to formally introduce Wayne State's 12th president, M. Roy Wilson. President Wilson was unanimously elected president by the Board of Governors and started his tenure on August 1st. An accomplished researcher, practitioner, and academic leader, he joined us most recently from the National Institutes of Health, where he served as Deputy Director for Strategic Scientific Planning and Program Coordination at the National Institute of Minority Health and Health Disparities. President Wilson has held numerous other leadership positions at universities around the country, and his vast body of medical-related research earned him a place on the list of best doctors in America for 14 consecutive years. President Wilson received his undergraduate degree from Allegheny College, an MS in epidemiology from the University of California at Los Angeles, and an MD from Harvard Medical School. We are thrilled to have his leadership and expertise at Wayne State. And in the last 9 months, I've personally witnessed President Wilson's great work in engaging our alumni, our campus community, and our city. It is my profound pleasure to introduce him to you today. Please join me in welcoming President M. Roy Wilson.
Thank you, Ty. Good afternoon, and welcome to Wayne State. The Arthur L. Johnson Urban Perspectives Lecture Series regularly tackles important issues facing our community, and today is no exception. Today's topic of strong neighborhoods is of particular interest to me and to Wayne State. In one way or another, we all have a stake in the success of Detroit, so I'm really glad that you're all here. Jane Addams, one of the most prominent reformers and social activists of the 1800s and early 1900s, said the good we secure for ourselves is precarious and uncertain until it is secured for all of us and incorporated into our common life. That rings true today in Detroit. Thanks to successful initiatives that we'll hear more about today, downtown, midtown, and pockets of Detroit's east side where the Warren County Development Coalition operates are springing back to life before our eyes. However, the need remains great in many of the city's neighborhoods. Wayne State has been deeply connected to Detroit since its founding in 1868, and I want to make it clear that the university remains committed to the community today. In fact, I view this as a time of immense opportunity to do the right things and to make a difference. I believe that public urban research universities have a critical and indeed an obligatory role in contributing to the economic vitality and improved quality of life in their surrounding communities. Whether it's Wayne State medical students providing the underserved with free health care, our employees raising money for the United Way, the public safety that we provide, the incentives we offer for people to live in Midtown, or our financial commitment to the M1 project, Wayne State will continue to do the right things. These things are good for Detroit, and they're good for us. Why? Strong neighborhoods benefit individual citizens, the community as a whole, and the greater society. People of all ages, races, and religion who feel a sense of belonging tend to lead happier and healthier lives, and strong communities create a more stable and supportive society. Wayne State University is proud to belong to Detroit. So thank you, Sue Mosey and Maggie DeSanctis, for joining us today to share your knowledge about building strong neighborhoods. And thank you all for being here and helping us build a stronger Detroit. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. It is now my pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Sue Mosey. Ms. Mosey has been the president of the University Cultural Center Association, the UCCA, in Detroit for 24 years. This nonprofit organization, newly reconstituted as Midtown Detroit, Inc., is responsible for community development, marketing, public space maintenance, security services, real estate and small business development, and arts programming within Detroit's University Cultural Center and New Center districts, now known as Midtown. Projects undertaken by the organization under her direction include new streetscapes and park development, greenway planning and construction, and residential and commercial real estate development and management. The organization also produces a number of signature events for the district, including Art X Detroit and one of my personal favorites, Noel Night. Ms. Mosey is a graduate of Wayne State University with a degree in urban planning. Please join me in giving her a warm Wayne State welcome, Ms. Sue Mosey.
Thank you, everyone. I have a lot of slides, so I'm going to talk really quick. It's going to be sort of a whirlwind tour of what's going on in Midtown Detroit, and then you can ask questions later. Just a couple of words about the organization. So we are involved in about 5 different areas pretty consistently. One is real estate development, which you'll see quite a bit of in this presentation, infrastructure. We're involved in a lot of small business development activity, which has really escalated in the last couple of years here in the neighborhood. We're involved in a lot of community building kinds of activity, and then we do a lot of these major arts programs that you've hopefully come to know and love over the many years that you've been in the Midtown neighborhood. So this is a map just kind of showing our district. Since we merged with New Center Council 3 years ago, we now cover Techtown, we cover New Center, and a little bit over by the Henry Ford Health Systems Hospital. The neighborhood has lots of people in it, and there's lots of stuff going on. We have lots of annual visitors because of the universities, the College for Creative Studies, and of course all of our arts facilities provide a huge amount of folks that come and go every year. Lots of people visiting our hospital systems. College students between Wayne State and the College for Creative Study, our core base, along with the employees, volunteers, and residents that are living in our Midtown New Center and our Woodbridge community, which we sort of consider like a bedroom community for Midtown. Lots of Wayne State folks live in Woodbridge. This gives you a little snapshot of the kind of investment that's gone on in the last 10 years. So a big number, $3 billion. So there's no lack of large investment here, both by the university, by the various medical facilities. You're seeing huge commitments by Henry Ford and the DMC now. Henry Ford to a South Campus development, and of course the DMC to a very large commitment that's been made. And then we're starting to see a lot more residential units, mixed use. Finally, commercial investment has really started to come into its own the last year or so, and then public improvement investment, which a lot of that we have to derive matching dollars for and work with federal and state funds. One of the things we do is we have about an $800,000 a year public space maintenance budget. This is a huge commitment on the part of the organization and our anchors who fund our operating to have a contract with Operation Clean, which is the Roger Penske organized group that hires a lot of underemployed folks to be trained. We have 2 large crews in Midtown that are out there all year round picking up trash. We also maintain all the medians in Midtown. So Mack and Warren and all those flower beds and the West Grand Boulevard up in New Center and all of that. So we make a huge commitment. We remove graffiti in the area. I mean, we do a lot of different public space maintenance activities. We've been investing in creating a 6-mile greenway pathway through the neighborhood. So if you've seen the improvements behind the Art and Museum and by the Science Center and next to the library and down towards Whole Foods on John R., we're continuing. We have one more leg of that to build out next year, which will be a $5 million project that will involve all new Comerica-style LED streetlights on Cass from Canfield all the way to I-94. And I'll also have LED pedestrian lights, landscaping improvements, sculpture, and a lot of other activities that we're going to put out on Cass with bike lanes and a lot of additional bike infrastructure. So this is being funded partly by $1 million the state legislature approved at the end of last year, along with a $3 million grant we're getting from the feds and some matching dollars that we have to pull together. So you are going to see a real transformation next year in Cass Avenue. The other thing we've been doing is converting a lot of our streets back to 2 ways with bike lanes. This year, get ready. 2nd Avenue from Warren to downtown going 2-way with bike lanes, okay? That's like a big deal in this neighborhood. We also been involved in like a lot of green alleys. So the first green alley we did was by the Green Garage. We designed it with them. We got the city to sort of accept this as a standard kind of green alley design for anybody doing these in the city. And then we're doing the Cadillac of green alleys now that goes under construction this week, which is over by the Willys building, from the old Avalon to the new Avalon Cafe that's under construction. A really bad alley, but a really great potential pedestrian way. So that's all being redeveloped as a sustainable alley, similar to this one. We also have done 2 large community gardens. We have 250 gardeners in our program. This is the one on 2nd, over by Mario's Restaurant. We have one over by the College for Creative Studies on John R. This has proved to be a really successful program here. We have a lot of people living in multi-unit buildings, and they have nowhere to grow their tomatoes or whatever. So it's been really popular. We always have long waiting lists. And I can't overstate the importance of our partnership with Wayne State University on the security. Chief Holt is, largely responsible for the resurgence, I think, of the neighborhood. And we work very closely with him and his department, trying to be as helpful as we can with some new equipment that they've asked us to provide, but working closely with everyone here at Wayne State to try and just drive down crime rates in the neighborhood. One of the other successful projects we run and have been running for years, we've spent millions of dollars incentivizing people to fix up storefronts, or to add, in this case, to add a storefront onto a concrete building. So we now have a little vintage clothing store and a little Spanish restaurant in this one that we provided a grant to. This will be the new restaurant from Andy Halliday, who is the former executive chef at Roast. This is in a very pioneering part of the neighborhood, but most of the chefs now, they all want like this transitional stuff. We've got a number of chefs coming in. This is another example of Lovio George's office we provided a grant to. And then we decided to sort of upgrade Marcus Market over there on 2nd Avenue. So now they even have an alley taco bar in there. So things are getting better. This is going to be the new Hudson Grill. It's going to be called the Addison Eatery, which is going to be opened by the guy who originally opened the Hudson Grill downtown. This will be under construction soon and open in the fall. Again, that's on Woodward Avenue. And this is kind of a fun new one that we're funding. This is called the 3rd Street Aquatic Center, which basically is kind of a hipster social space with a dumpster pool. Anyway, that's under construction now. And then we have these live residential programs. If you saw the paper today, you saw the good news about our 3-year report. We've got 1,600 new people that have moved in. We have another 1,000 people that have renewed leases here. And we were expanding our boundary for our for sale portion of the program for all you Wayne Staters out here to beautiful Boston Edison, where you can get great value houses, at a reasonable cost. This just gives you a quick impression of how many people have been buying and renting and used exterior improvements, how much funding we've used, how many household sizes. So that's where we get to the 1,600 number. This is kind of an interesting slide that shows you the age breakdowns of people who've been using the program. So, a lot of people on the rental side still in that 20 to 29, but, we have a pretty good spread all the way up to age 49 or so. And then the gender, I think, for the new residents is also interesting. So in the Midtown area, you have most of the buyers are men and most of the renters are women. And then downtown, it's a reverse, which is sort of interesting. This is where people are moving from in other parts of the city of Detroit. So this is like, no rhyme or reason. I mean, it's just, I guess, whoever feels like it. And then this is from the region, which also is a similar kind of cast a wide net over the entire geography. And this is where they're landing in Midtown. So the lower end of this is Mack Avenue, and the upper end is Philadelphia Street, which is just north of Virginia Park. So, people are clustering clearly around Henry Ford, the Wayne State, and the Detroit Medical Center, as you'd expect. One of the other buildings that we own this office building, a 40,000 square foot office building on West Grand Boulevard. This is where Detroit Future Cities has just moved in, and we're also doing a coffee house with Cafe Con Leche from Southwest Detroit that should open soon. And we also have our park adjacent. And we've been doing a lot of district planning with all of the different neighborhoods and partners. So we just completed one that's really for New Center that looks at a couple of key sites for redevelopment there. We've just completed one also for the Detroit Medical Center area, looking at these three key areas for improvement. And we're also going under construction within a month on this new public space up in Techtown. So this is where the current Techtown parking lot is. Those folks are moving to the MDOT lot, and we're creating this wonderful public space outside the Wayne State new biomed facility. So this will create, we hope, a socialization place and a place for a lot of people in the district to come together, exchange ideas, have some coffee, and have a good time. This is another building that we had owned that we bought. This was the former Agave restaurant building. We were going to redevelop it, and then we got approached by Hopcat out of Grand Rapids who want to do the biggest beer hall in the state. We said, well, why wouldn't we do that? So anyway, we sold that building. There'll be 150 beers on tap from around the world and an indie rock club on the second floor. And then this is the new building that actually starts construction this week. This one is a 30,000 square foot office building on Woodward on the same block as Hopcat. And this is, we have a bunch of tenants that we've lined up, mostly creative type tenants that'll begin occupying this. This is an 8-month construction, so we should be done the end of the year. Then this is the Forest Arms, a very beloved building here. This closed and is now under construction. So this one, we had a fire, and Kwame's people, Bobby Ferguson, showed up to tear it down. And luckily, the mayor's office, decided to hang with us on this one. And we got some fire insurance escrow money released early so we could get the due diligence. We got the last bit of tax credit money before the governor got rid of it. We got Flagstar Bank to come in to agree to give us a loan and a few other things. So anyway, now it's going back to its original 75 units with 2 underground little commercial spaces. And now we're closing on this one in June. So this is one that's over by Alexandrian, kind of behind the Great Lakes Grossing Coffee Company around the corner from our office. This had been been closed down by Mike Duggan years ago for being just an out-of-control building when he was prosecutor, and then it went through like 5 different developer hands because nobody could figure out how to do this project, and so we finally bought it. We didn't know what we were doing either, but we bought it anyway and said somebody's got to figure it out. So we spent the last 2 years, we figured it out. We raised $30 million, and now we're going to be doing 129 units of rental housing, 60% market, 40% affordable. We're going to do something cool on the ground floor. Don't know what that is yet, but we get under construction in the summer on this one. And then we bought a church, because why not? So this is a cute little church, and it's over in an arts district we're creating over there by Nanamdi Gallery. This is a district that has a lot of just vacant, crazy, like you're off-roading when you go back there to park over there. But anyway, there's a parking deck that we've got funded over there for 250 cars. The church we're going to do is a combination art center, small black box studio theater that I hope I can work with the university on, and an urban winery. So it's going to be a combination of the 3, because everybody said if you don't have any alcohol, you'll never make this project work. So, and they were actually true when you ran the numbers. So then we run New Center Park. We encourage all of you to consider coming out. This is a great venue. We start out this summer. Wednesday nights are movie nights, Thursday and Saturday. Saturday nights we're going to be doing participatory dance parties. So ballroom, tango, salsa, every kind of dance, swing. So everybody come out, live bands with instructors on a lot of those nights. And then we do Noel Night. You all know Noel Night. Then we do Art X Detroit, which is for the Kresge Foundation. And we did De-Electricity, which is coming up again, bigger than ever, September of this year. It'll be through the whole footprint. So this is Wayne State's biomed facility under construction, the new Wayne State Cass Canfield project that they're working with Broder Saxe on. which will be a game changer for the whole neighborhood when that happens. This is the new Wayne State Physicians Group building that's going to go under construction in June on Woodward, where the old Carpenters building was. This is the new Junction 440 space that TechTown has created, which is a fantastic co-working space. This is the Heart Hospital. And these are people that mostly fund a lot of our deals. Like all these people are in most of our deals. This gives you a snapshot of some of the projects. So residential, we had about 195 that were just completed that are now just being offered, although many of them are now leased. Units underway, about another 304, another in the pipeline of 896. So it's starting to come along. This is one we are co-partner on. We put money into this one. It was a vacant Hebrew school behind the College for Creative Study that's going to be 27 units of loft housing. It's already under construction. This is one we haven't gotten over the finish line on. We're a partner in this on Ferry Street by the freeway. This would be 58 units, mixed income. We need $1.5 million in true gap money to get this over the finish line, but we're working on it. This is one that kind of fell apart on Woodward. But Flagstar Bank is funding this to bring it back to its original with the two little storefronts. And then we bought this from the university a number of years ago, had a partner, we co-invested on this. It's now brought back to 14 units of beautiful, fully restored housing in this building. And this one looks like it's close to getting over the finish line. It would be a new building on Woodward, south of Mac, for office and retail space. This one, we've also been working with Greater Central Christian up in New Center. They have this building to do mixed income housing here, and this now is fully funded. We've also helped get a line of credit for a young guy up in Virginia Park to just keep buying houses and rehabbing them, so he's moving along. He's done 4 or 5 so far. And then this one is up in New Center, just north of the Viaducts on Woodward. It's an old Caribbean restaurant. We love the building. So we got a developer from Ann Arbor, Peter Allen. He's coming in with a group of his students, and they're investing, and they're going to rehab this for mixed-use development. This one's the Brentwood that just got completed. They hope to start being able to occupy this with students as soon as their tax credits sell. This one we put some dollars into, bought by a local doctor, and they're renovating it for 3 units of housing and a commercial space. And this just closed this last week. We had our groundbreaking for 47 units of affordable housing down at the corner of Cass and Mac. This one is one that also closed. The financing now is the construction loans are using our new Woodward Corridor Fund that was just put together, and this will be a total gut rehab. This is at Alexandrian and 3rd, and this is the Elmore project, which is fully under construction. It's the old castle there that they're redoing for an urban lodge. Part of it's apartments. They're building actually up north cabins on the top of the castle right now, so if you go over there, you see them all framed in. They're doing greenhouses, they're doing commercial, they're doing a community greens. I mean, it's quite an ambitious project. And they took the old Wayne State water tower. Ned was really happy about that. And then this is Woodward Guard Block, and this is the block we're on, and we've been working with the developer since the beginning of this to redo this block. So we brought in the Great Lake Roasting Coffee Company. We're partners in that deal. We brought Kresge in. We took a bunch of the space. Wayne State Physicians took the upper floors. We now have a boutique. We're talking to Zipcar about taking a lease here. We're talking to a number of banks. U of M's taking a lease for their architecture school. We have a fitness center going in, so lots and lots of new stuff coming in here. This is the Alley Wine Bar planned for over by that other restaurant I showed you. And then this is what, this is going to be the new Chinatown, okay? So this is the old building that's across from the old Chung's, just purchased. He's already lined up all of his tenants. It's going to be a really cool set of tenants, and we bought the old Chung's, so we're going to come up with a really cool redo for something there. Asian inspired. And then this is a group of other buildings that were recently purchased that are going to be under renovation shortly. So if you take a really quick look at Midtown since 2003, you just see all these different kinds of developments coming in. You know, everything from new construction, lots of rehab, office, residential, lots of institutional investment, small business development, the Shinola Watch Factory, the Whole Foods, you know, lots and lots and lots of projects. So we had 24 businesses, storefront businesses that opened up last year. This year, at least 30 should open. And so we can really repopulate the commercial. This is a shot of one of the ones in the Auburn. This is our Great Lakes Coffee Company. Some really exciting businesses. You probably just read Shinola just announced their second store here called Willie's Detroit. Will not carry Shinola products. The owner of Shinola also owns a bunch of other brands, so he'll have 4 of his other brands here, and he'll also feature a lot of local brands in the store as well. It'll be open in June. The opening will be in June. The running store is here, and these are just a lot of the other, you know, lots of yoga, the Kids Space Montessori, tea shops, all kinds of restaurants. So this is the new Cafe Con Leche space, which will be on the boulevard in our building. So they should be open in a couple months as well next to our park. Okay? So with that.
Wow. Sue, thank you so much for that great presentation. Anybody by chance, has anybody here taken advantage of the Live Midtown incentive? A couple hands. I myself, I know Dean Williams as well from the business school, both had the advantage of taking advantage of the Live Midtown incentive in the Park Shelton and found it to be a great experience. So again, just so many exciting things obviously taking place in Midtown. Again, thank you, Sue. It's now my pleasure to introduce our second speaker, Maggie DeSantis. Ms. DeSantis is founder and president of the Warren Connor Development Coalition, or the WCDC, one of Detroit's largest and most successful community organizations. Since 1984, the WCDC has served as a catalyst to improve the quality of life for residents. Under Ms. DeSantis' leadership, the WCDC has focused on community partnerships, youth substance abuse prevention, after-school programs, community farming initiatives, and redevelopment and land use issues. Signs of revitalization in the area include the development of the 60,000 square foot Mac Alter Square Shopping Center, a revitalized Warren Connor Shopping Center, and hundreds of new homes. Ms. DeSantis is a graduate of Wayne State University and Central Michigan University. Please join me in welcoming her back home to Wayne State. Ms. DeSantis.
Good afternoon, everyone. And it's really nice to see so many friends. It's really nice to see the formerly roach-infested Forest Arms being redeveloped. Thank you, Sue. That's where I lived as an undergrad. So I'm going to have to, it's always a little bit intimidating to follow Sue in Midtown. Sue and I go back very many years. And so I'll just stand up here right now and admit that it's kind of scary, I think, what I'm about to do and say, because I'm going to have to ask you to relax a little bit and breathe. I am not showing a bajillion developments. I can't announce a Live East Side program. In fact, what I want to do, well, I'll just say this. We want to be like Midtown when we grow up. We just turned 30. And so I guess that means we really do have to grow up, right, Patrick? Patrick Lindsay is our former board chair. So what I really want to talk about today is perhaps some thought-provoking ideas and information that will give you a deep contrast, and I mean deep, between what can happen in a community where foundations, government at all levels, and private investors decide we can do this, we can turn this around, and a community where mostly everybody says, nobody lives there anymore, why don't we just put up a fence around it and go to Midtown or go to Northwest Detroit. And I don't say that to whine, because I think the Lower East Side has huge potential. It is true that we have catalyzed or otherwise owned and developed lots of commercial property. The Mac Alter Square Shopping Center is a truly high-quality shopping center on the Lower East Side. Everybody told us not to do it, and it's done, and it's fully occupied. We have catalyzed hundreds of homes. We have worked with over 2,000 young people who've come through a program called Youth on the Edge of Greatness. Who knows, there might be a YOE alumni in this room here. But then right around the early 1990s, something happened. And it really was the trigger for what you see on the screen. What happened is that people started leaving. And when people start leaving, businesses leave. So we, right around the I would say the 90s were booming, and we were very optimistic, and the city had cleared a whole section of the Lower East Side between Jefferson and Warren and between Alter and Connor. They called it the New Far East Side Project. 1,200 new units were coming in. Henry Cisneros was brought in, Mel Washington, Kimball Hill Homes. It was going to be awesome. And we moved into the 2000s, and we got to around 2005, 2006, and it started to feel kind of funny, and then everybody knows what happened in 2008. Right? The whole thing collapsed. So right around that time, several community development organizations serving the Lower East Side began to have a different conversation. The irony of the Lower East Side, frankly, is that it's got arguably the least density in the entire city, but it has some of the most active and well-organized community development organizations, which for those of you who are interested in thinking about community development, that tells us something about how people will tend to organize in the most desperate straits. So good organizing doesn't always flow from lots of density and lots of opportunity. Sometimes it flows from desperation and what appears to be no hope, no opening, no green light. But the Lower East Side was well organized, and we began to ask each other whether we should just shut our doors. Community development organizations traditionally build new homes, build new shopping centers, organize block clubs, build parks, and it's kind of a happy story. But when your neighborhood has drained of population, you have to ask yourselves whether you should stay in existence. So what these organizations said is we need to figure out something totally different. We need to jump into a totally different paradigm. We need to figure out how to convert all this vacant land and blight into something exciting, some kind of a new future. And so we took a look at the data, and the data showed us that the largest concentration of vacant land on the Lower East Side was situated between I-94 and the river, and that's Mount Elliott on the west and Alter Road on the east. 15 square miles, 53,000 population at the time, all right? So representing about 15% of the city's footprint, but only about 7% of the city's population. That arithmetic is fairly easy to figure out. So we started out by saying, and I'll just go, wait a minute. All right, we started out by saying, okay, what really is the problem here? Is Detroit really worse off than other cities? And what we're looking at is the reality that Detroit is no more or less dense than several cities who we would consider to be viable, right? Atlanta, Portland, Denver. Is Detroit any more or less dense than other Michigan cities? No, not necessarily. I'll let you glance at that slide. Here's some more comparative cities, local and non-local. And then we took a look at some of our local communities. Is Detroit more or less dense than the two communities known to be the least dense? Brightmoor on the Lower West Side and the Lower East Side. And it doesn't take a genius to see what the numbers tell you, all right? So what is the problem? What is the problem? If Detroit is no more or less dense in the aggregate than these other communities locally, regionally, and nationally, what is the problem? First of all, our open spaces are unplanned, unsightly, unkept, and owned by a hodgepodge of public entities and speculators, right? If you don't even know who owns the property, you can't even really figure out how to assemble it. And site assembly is clearly the most obvious problem we have here. Second, we are a city built for $2 million, so we have sunk costs, literally sunk, pipes, wires, etc., for a city of 2 million. So if we started out wanting to be a city of 700,000, we'd probably be in different shape. But when you're a city for 2 million and you sink costs and all that infrastructure, what you end up with is a lot of junk. You end up with outdated management systems and an inability to serve all those people. And so Detroit does not have a problem that is unsolvable. What Detroit has is right now, it's a little bit less than a really, really terrific strategy for each neighborhood that's suffering. But Detroit also has an amazing track record, and we've just seen examples. I mean, I was jumping out of my seat looking at everything Sue was telling us about. When we have the will, when we have the right strategy, when we figure out how to use our assets, look at what we can accomplish. Any one of us over 40 remembers that Midtown used to be the Cass Corridor, and it was a mess. It was junk. My roach-infested Forest Arms apartment building was not an unusual place for a Wayne State student to live. So how do we solve for these problems? What we say with the Lower East Side Action Plan is, first of all, we have to have well-planned districts of higher density surrounded by well-maintained, productive, and recreational open space. I think this is where Detroit has to go. Lately, I hear fewer and fewer arguments. We have to have alternative cost-efficient delivery service systems to support the low-density residential areas. In no way should we ever force people to leave. We can incentivize people to move into more dense neighborhoods if that's what they want to do. But we should never be about the immoral business of saying, oh, well, your neighborhood is empty, you must go. We have to figure out a way to serve those folks who choose to stay. And then finally, we have to engage and involve residents in ways we've never done before, and the private sector, in very creative open space reuse, production, and maintenance partnerships. All right, so that's our theory. Here's the other part of our going in theory. When we decided to do this work, the Lower East Side Action Plan, we started with one going in assumption that many people, again, said we were crazy, we were pessimistic, we were selling ourselves short. What we said was we're not going to repopulate for the next 2 or 3 generations. Just think about that. I was accused of being a naysayer and how could I do this? You've always been so optimistic. And my answer is optimism is really often, well-founded optimism is really often based on reality and a real understanding, eyes wide open, of what you're up against. And in the face of that reality, you still try to create some good things. That's what optimism is really all about. So the Lower East Side Action Plan was created out of that sense that residents have to be engaged. We don't have Detroit Medical Center, Wayne State University, all the museums in the city. What we have are people assets and some geographic assets, the Detroit River and the Eastern Market as an example. So we focused on economically impactful reuse of vacant land. We focused on recognizing that some of the residential areas on the Lower East Side could be and should be stabilized because they still were more dense. So specifically, that's going to be Chandler Park, Jeff Chalmers, Gratiot Woods, the Villages community, and the Gold Coast. And we ended up involving residents in the actual data collection. This was hugely important. The assumption is that residents don't get it. Residents are partly responsible for why people have left. Residents will never understand that we have to find different avenues, different futures. And so let's just not talk about it. What we said was, no. Our residents get it. They've known instinctively what the problem is. And if they can be involved in actually gathering and then understanding and analyzing the data, they will come up with the right solutions. In the end, over 10% of the population touched or were otherwise engaged in this planning process, which was highly interactive, highly iterative, took way too long. But in the end, we ended up with a plan that residents actually made. We used CDAD's Neighborhood Revitalization Strategic Framework as a planning tool, which used a typology approach, basically said, this neighborhood has these current conditions, therefore it falls into this category, and those very current conditions can define a better future for the neighborhoods. We made it very clear that we valued both the residents' experiential insight as well as the data, and we helped the residents understand the importance of data that they might not otherwise have looked at. And then finally, we involved just about every single neighborhood on the Lower East Side. So, and this was one of the aspects of the plan that residents said was most useful for them, and that's that folks from West Village could be talking with folks from Chandler Park. Folks from Jeff Chalmers could be talking with folks from Gratiot Woods neighborhood. And so to be able to get that understanding that we're all in this together, and it may be a big, big footprint, but we really can work our way out of this, was huge. Many, many, many community partners, many technical partners. And I have to say, one of the most amazing things to me about this is that virtually none of those technical partners received a dime for their involvement. There are a couple, I won't name them, who required a fee, but they discounted the fee. Everybody else came to the table because we asked them and because they wanted to do something meaningful, and they could see that this was not going to be a typical planning process where you come up with an idea, you have a, quote, public hearing, you take a few comments, you check the box that says we've had a public hearing, then you go away and make the plan. This was something entirely different. We learned many lessons. These are probably the most important ones. Got to have all the different sectors involved. Every university we could grab helped us. The bullet at the bottom really was probably the most important lessons. Residents are willing to deal with the reality of population loss, business loss, city service deterioration, and blight to find realistic visions. The key is to involve them and listen to their desires, their ideas, and their insights. Here's the LEAP footprint. And I'll just briefly describe some of the typologies. So these represent both typologies and future directions. So we described a set of urban homestead districts. This is basically an experimental district in very, very low density areas where a family could potentially develop a rural lifestyle right inside the city. Why can't we have a single house surrounded by 2 or 3 acres where we're growing things, where we're off the grid, and we can jump in our car and 10 minutes later we're down here at Wayne State or at Comerica Park. Spacious residential is nothing but neighborhoods where the residents currently care enough to acquire legally or squat on vacant property next to their homes, and they've built their garages, their playgrounds, their little gardens. These are big suburban style lots. The naturescapes are areas of very, very low density where we might have some low maintenance foliage growing. We might have a greenway path, but we're really not programming the space. Milliken State Park on the Riverwalk is a great example of a naturescape. One of the reasons the residents were interested in this is because, ironically enough, despite the fact that Detroit has all this open space and vacant land, Detroit is underparked. Sue talked about all the open space projects they're doing. Detroit does not have enough park space, even for the 700,000 people that live here. And so Naturescape offers an opportunity for more of that. And then the dark brown are what we call traditional residential, a house on virtually every lot. We also have some commercial typologies which are unique and creative. Green venture zones are areas of very low density near major roads where, based on some suitability tools that were developed for us by Smith Group, JJR, a green venture typology was more appropriate. So you see that whole strip of green venture zones to the west. That includes the Packard plant, right? Don't have to say much more about that. But the other green venture zones could be suitable for something like the Hance Woodlands project, which many of you are familiar with. It's controversial, but honestly, it's commercial forestry following a major clearance of blight. And I will tell you that if we take you there today and you talk to the residents in the Hance Woodlands project, very, very few, I've yet to run into someone who's complaining about a so-called land grab. What they're really happy about is that the blight is gone and they're about to get some trees that somebody's going to maintain. Then we have village hubs, which are simply walkable districts, kind of like what you see in Midtown, but closely associated with traditional residential. And then green thoroughfares. This is a very unique typology. This is basically our way of recognizing that most of the commercial corridors in the Lower East Side are now overbuilt. The population loss triggered a business loss. If we're assuming no new population in 2 or 3 generations, then we have to assume those commercial corridors have to be repurposed. The green thoroughfare concept is just simply a way of saying, let's create beautiful, productive green byways that link more dense areas. And so we're experimenting with one right now, the Mack Avenue Green Thoroughfare Project, which we call the Green T. And it's not about golf or tea. It's about a green thoroughfare. We came up with several policy recommendations. These are no-brainers, really. We have to have side lot disposition programs. Residents have to easily acquire lots next to their homes. We have to have comprehensive land acquisition strategies. Some of you have seen, and I certainly appreciate what Mayor Duggan is doing, trying to consolidate this hodgepodge of Michigan Land Bank, Wayne County Land Bank, Detroit Land Bank, Wayne County Treasurer's Auction. Just this horrific systems problem of land being owned by too many people and too many speculators into one system. And so these are 2 policy recommendations. Have to have nuisance abatement. Once again, Mayor Duggan understood this and borrowed from what he did as a county prosecutor. This is basically just using the law to take property that's owned by derelict owners. And then we have to have public-private partnerships to fund blight remediation. I think that's where we're going with not Pulte so much anymore, but with the Blight Task Force and a lot of work that's happening right now under the leadership of Dan Gilbert. A major policy recommendation for us is we want to create a green zone, which is simply a zoning overlay with a package of incentives and a lot of marketing that makes the Lower East Side a green destination zone for recreation investments, green venture investments. Here you'll get a sense of what some of those goals are. visiting other cities, looking locally at what's right in front of us on the Lower East Side. And then believe it or not, there are economic opportunities on the Lower East Side. They're not going to be the same as Midtown, but we think that they're going to be just as impactful. So we have stormwater infiltration forests going up. These are simply tree canopies with the right kind of trees that end up gathering and diverting stormwater and preventing the city from having to manage all that stormwater. That's a very, very short, very layman's description of it. These kind of forests and other green infrastructure end up saving the city huge amounts of money and end up beautifying and potentially creating opportunities for other investment. Here's the green tea demonstration site. Believe it or not, behind that orange fencing is a pennycress planting on one demonstration block. Pennycress remediates the soil. It's an input into the production of biodiesel fuel. It doesn't grow very high, so residents feel safe. It's a great crop. It doesn't look that bad. Not gorgeous, doesn't look that bad. And so what we're doing with the green tea is planting pennycress eventually on several hundred acres so that the revenue in partnership with a biodiesel company who we've signed up with can actually help maintain the thoroughfare and create some jobs. One of our partners, Genesis Hope CDC, is looking at taking over an old school, which has an old kitchen, which can be a food processing incubator. It's one of the big missing links in our food security chain, for those of you who recognize that problem. There are 2 neighborhoods that are working hard on stabilization projects. Once again, LEAP is not just about vacant land, it's about stabilizing neighborhoods that are more dense. There's a very exciting project going on at Chandler Park. A rebuild of the park, a redevelopment of the recreation space, a conversion into a conservation campus. Russell, the Corsier right here, is helping us with that from Gensler, and there are a bajillion other technical partners helping. I should say that the EPA and the Erb and Kresge Foundations are investing in a major green infrastructure investment on the Lower East Side. Once again, at first blush, it doesn't look like a development opportunity, but to the extent that the green infrastructure is going to lower those water and sewage processing fees that DWSD is going to have to be charging, we now have opportunities to attract more development in the future because we're managing this stormwater. This is probably pretty boring to a lot of you right now. Okay, all right. I always feel like, especially coming after Sue, I always feel like, oh my God, green infrastructure. It's nothing like all the cool stuff Sue's describing. We're very excited because the LEAP plan is about to be incorporated into the city's master plan. This is huge because it will help direct investment. And it doesn't mean we're going to say, no, we don't want housing. What it means is we're going to be able to say, if you're interested in new housing and you actually believe there's a demand for it on the Lower East Side, these are the neighborhoods we want you to go to. If you're interested in green venture, these are the typologies we want you to concentrate in. And the mayor's office seems pretty excited. They have chosen this little sub-community as one of their first steps in June in order to start looking at an update to the city's master plan and policies. Urban planners in the room, this is huge, right? Very compatible with Detroit Future City, right? The way DFC and LEAP tend to interact is we say that DFC created the 30,000 foot high overarching recommendations, and the LEAP plan drills down and provides more detail. There are a few discrepancies. There are some areas in the LEAP plan where the neighbors chose a slightly different typology, but not at all incompatible with the kind of green production and green innovation that you see there that Detroit Future City recommends. We have an implementation structure. There's a LEAP project fund for mid-sized projects for investors who want to invest. There's a grassroots community fund for grassroots organizations who want to create small projects, gardens, parks in the LEAP district. We are getting ready to create a LEAP Prosper Us program. I don't know, do you know Prosper Us? Grassroots entrepreneurial training and development. So we're going to be looking at trying to encourage the kind of businesses that we're talking about. There's a bunch of committees at work, and we're determined to implement the plan. There's a steering committee governing the LEAP implementation process right now. Of the 15, 7 are elected from within our stakeholder advisory group. This is a group of 70 to 100 residents who meet every other month, and their focus is on implementation of the plan, representing all those different neighborhoods. And this is how you can connect with us. We thank LISC. We recently received funding from the Kresge Foundation, but I would say the biggest thank you goes to the Erb Family Foundation, which really had the foresight, honestly, in the face of many, many powers that be, telling the Erb Family Foundation not to fund LEAP because it was going to compete with Detroit Future City. And the Erb Family Foundation recognizing what they were seeing on the Lower East Side and saying, no, 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 something good is happening here. We can do this. And here we are today. So that's really it for me. And hopefully we'll have a really good discussion following this. But I just want you to know that we on the Lower East Side feel as optimistic as anybody in Midtown. What we ask is that we start thinking differently. We jump into a different paradigm. We recognize that a strong neighborhood has many, many definitions. It's not necessarily driven just by density, although that's very exciting when we can be in a dense neighborhood. It can also be driven by beautiful open space, lots of different alternative kinds of businesses, and lots of job-creating industry. But instead of that industry making cars, we think it can be making food and flowers and wood and lots of other products that will not just create jobs, but they will create a clean and green Lower East Side. Thanks.
Maggie, don't sell yourself short on the Lower East Side. Let me again say, wow. So many opportunities. Did I hear urban farming, rural farming? We're going to talk later. That sounds amazing. Just so many opportunities in both Midtown and the Lower East Side in terms of development and already developments going on. We have about 7 minutes left. I'm going to ask both Maggie and Sue to come back up. Kim and Carmen are available with microphones if you'd like to raise your hand if you do have a question. Again, we have about 7 minutes for questions.
Good afternoon. Thank you, ladies, for the presentation. My name is Robin West Smith. Maggie, hello. Long time no see. Ms. Posey, you and I have met a couple of times at various events. My question is directed to you, Ms. Posey. Given that we're going to be doing a major entertainment district over in the area, in the corridor, Midtown area, I'd like to know how and what type of impact Midtown Incorporated will have with that entertainment district development, and if any of the historical theaters in the site, which happens to only be one, Masonic Temple, will be involved in any way.
Well, you know, what's happened there is under the new council, they've put together a whole resident advisory group that they just formed. And that will be the vehicle by which I think a lot of negotiating will be going on between the developers of the various pieces of that plan and all the affected property owners. So it's sort of a new paradigm that the council's created, which I think is a good one for the large scale redevelopment project. So, I mean, it is yet to be played out, but I think you will see a lot of negotiation going forward.
Hi, Steve Babson. I'm an alumnus and retiree from Wayne State University. I live on the east side, East English Village. And the question I have, I think everything you've described is great. It's exciting. There's a lot going on in other neighborhoods as well that's addressing the question of blight. But my question to you is, can we effectively deal with the elimination of blight if we aren't addressing the creation of blight, in particular through foreclosure? And right now there's 40,000 properties up for tax foreclosure in this city, and there's thousands and thousands that go to foreclosure from the banks and also from Fannie Mae. So I would hope to see also some effort on that part, and I'm sure there may be issues that you're addressing in your plan. I just didn't see it here.
The short answer is no, we can't unless we deal with the problem of foreclosure. And honestly, it's a problem that I think sometimes we conveniently stick our heads in the sand about. I can tell you that I'm confident that our mayor is talking with several banks who not only have the opportunity to invest, but they have motivation to invest because their REO portfolios are huge. And these are unmanaged foreclosed homes in neighborhoods like East English Village and others. So it's an opportunity to leverage the problem and the opportunity and try to create a solution. But we have to deal with that. However, we also have to deal with all that surrounding blight. So what I like to create as an analogy that says that the blight that we see, especially from vacant property, is like a cancer. And we can't get rid of the cancer by going to the neighborhoods that are more dense and look a little healthier right now and hoping that they won't get touched, because blight will encroach. So we've got to deal with all forms of blight, including foreclosed homes, as well as the non-structural blight, as well as just the vast acres of empty lots that are out there.
Good afternoon. Hi, my name is Dr. Dion Johnson. I'm also alumnus, and I'm a veteran as well. My question is more or less to the human capital side of the house. Veterans coming home and those that probably have various skill sets and have the abilities to maybe support and add to what it is that you're working on. How do you see veterans participating in this process, or at least looking from a job perspective so they can also come home and help maybe contribute as more?
Well, in our area, luckily there was a very large veterans facility built that Southwest Solutions did up on Paquette, and that is really a pretty significant attempt, I think, to address a lot of those needs and to get people into a pipeline, not only of housing but a lot of supportive services. I think you're going to see more of those kinds of facilities. There's a lot of federal dollars out there actually to support these today. And I know there's a number of developing groups actually looking at how they can provide more housing and more supportive services in the corridor. I'm not sure on the east side.
Well, we actually have been approached by a group of veterans who want to tap into some of that funding and want to work on housing rehab in some of the neighborhoods of the Lower East Side where we have empty homes. So we'll see if we can make something like that happen.
I think we're both, I'm sure, hoping that in this really amazing opportunity for deconstruction that's going to be going on, that somebody really figures out how to scale up the deconstruction effort for Detroit residents. And there's lots of good pilots that have been running, but so far nobody, to my knowledge, has really scaled up to where you can have really significant impact on the amount of unemployment in Detroit, which probably this would be the best opportunity I've ever seen to try and get low-tech jobs for people that are in neighborhoods throughout the city, because this whole blight remediation eventually, I mean, it's going to be in almost every neighborhood. So even for people who have transportation challenges or other challenges, if you can, they can figure out a way to have this district in these various neighborhoods, I mean, you can really make an employment program work for people. So hopefully the Blight Commission is, seriously prioritizing that part of the program, because as much as blight is a problem, jobs are a bigger problem. So, I mean, that really need to be addressed together, and this is an opportunity to do that.
Yeah, and thank you for that segue. The human capital side of the equation, we must create jobs that Detroiters today can fill. We just must. And we believe deconstruction can be a way to do that. I'm a little worried right now because deconstruction bumps up the cost per house of demolition or deconstruction. So I don't know if anybody's come up with a business model, and I don't know if it is possible to come up with a business model that makes sense just to a private investor. So somehow we've got to wrap our arms around the fact that it's worth the extra cost of deconstructing a house to create the jobs. And then for the Lower East Side, we want the materials management facility that can take some of that material and create more jobs. So we have to deal with that human capital side.
We have time for one more question.
How are you partnering with the public schools? That could have been on one of your slides to strengthen the neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm. Which part of the real East Side did you grow up in?
I grew up on Field, right by East Grand Boulevard,
Oh, my.
between Canfield and Mack.
So near the old Eastern High School. Wow. So I would say partnering with DPS is not for the faint of heart. And I'll just be, I'm not known for being subtle. So I'll just say that. I will cite one project that I think has great potential that's happening on the Lower East Side, and that's the Kettering High School urban farming project. So Kettering High School has a huge campus. It's a huge building. And Betty Wiggins, God bless Betty, from Detroit Public Schools, has led an effort that will result in the Kettering High School, which is now abandoned and empty, into an indoor and outdoor urban farm installation. So we're pretty excited about that. DPS needs to figure out a way to dispose of all that property in ways that allow investors who have the right kind of mindset to come in and reuse the property. So anybody here from DPS, please go back and fix that, would you?
They'll be right on that.
Well, how about another big Wayne State round of applause for two fantastic alum, Maggie DeSantis and Sue Mosey. I know I, for one, am extremely excited about what I just saw and about the investment that so many folks, businesses, and others are making in our fantastic city, our fantastic community, and near our fantastic campus. And before we wrap up today, I'd just like to ask Sue and Maggie to come up one last time. We have a copy of Arthur Johnson's memoir, Race and Remembrance, for each of you as a token of our appreciation for your presentation today. So if you'd come up one more time, please. Thank you very much, Maggie. I appreciate it. Cool, thank you.
I just want to take a second to say that Arthur would be so proud. He worked with both of these outstanding women early in their career. Maggie, while she was at New Detroit, and Sue, am I right? Did Arthur hire you at UCCA? So I know he's looking down, smiling, because he loves them and he loved our great city.